Hello guys, welcome to this other Code Club activity. Last time we saw how to make our character move in the screen in the game. Today we'll see how to use something called a variable to build a more complete game that is able to remember information about itself, meaning the game will be able to keep track of stuff like the score, the speed of the player at which the player need to move, stuff like that. So we'll do a simple cat and mouse game. So I will not take this cat, but I will go here at the bottom and add a new sprite in my game. And I know there's a top-down cat here that we have. This will be my player, and we will try to catch mouses. So we have here mouse. So there, it's a little bit big, so let's put it at maybe half that, 50%, perfect. And the cat, let's go with 2/3. Okay, perfect. So now we'll spend most of our time on the mouse, but we want to set up the player so it can move, and we'll see one of the technique we used last week. So for when I start my game, I want forever in loop, so repeat. So this is the loop that will repeat whatever I put inside. And the motion I want to do is I want the cat to point to my mouse and then move forward. So we want to point toward the mouse pointer and move. But let's say I want to change the speed at which I move. And this is the first time we'll use a variable. So let's say I want to be able to change it. So we'll go into variable. Instead of putting it 10 here everywhere, I'll go here, I'll write speed. So variable are containers for information, usually number or text. And we give them a name and they contain a value. So the name of my variable here will be speed. And we can see here that the value of speed, the value that speed contain is actually 0. So let's set my variable, but not my variable, but we want to set speed and let's say 5. So if I go here, speed is 5, but my cat is still moving 10 step every time instead of 5. The reason for that is because I didn't use my variable. So instead of what we call hard coding value here in the code, so I wrote down 10, or if I want 5, I can go here 5, I can go here 9. I can just put the speed, and the speed is a reference to the value. So when we use the name of a variable, we reference the value here. So now the cat is moving 5, and I can change the speed here. And one of the reasons I would want to do that instead of simply writing 5 is to make sure that I can do stuff with my speed without knowing exactly what it is. So that's one of the use of variable. So in this case, we have a little glitch here. And this happens because when my cat is close enough to the mouse, but not yet there, so it's at less than 5 pixels from the mouse, but not at 5. So it moved another 5, so we overshoot, and then now we're a little bit over, so but less than 5, so we turn around and overshoot again, and so on and so on. So to prevent that, we can just check if something is bigger than another. So what I want to check is if the distance between the cat and my mouse is bigger than the speed at which the cat move. So we'll go here and use the speed as a variable. And you see that you can also use another variable that the game give you, which is the distance to the mouse pointer. So every time you see a little capsule like that, mouse X, mouse Y, it's always a stand-in for a value. So you see the Y of my mouse, because I'm below the screen, is minus 180. If I put it here, let's say, you see now it's 36. So every time you see the loudness, the timer, the backdrop name of the stage, or the size of my mouse, every capsule like that is a variable that stands in for a value. Now, without knowing what is the distance between my cat and my mouse pointer, and without knowing exactly what is the speed at which I move, I can still make this check to make sure I'm far enough so I don't overshoot. See, now if the speed is less than the mouse pointer distance, the distance to the mouse pointer, we won't execute the code. So that's a little movement script uh, using a variable. So the cool thing with it is that if I change my speed on the fly, I will be able to adjust it. And because I never use a specific value here and only reference to value through variables, then my code still work. My cat move at 28 speed, and it still stop if the mouse is closer than 28. So that's the first variable that we will want to use. Normal readout, and just will hide it, so you don't need to see it. Now, how can we catch mouses? So let's go and do a score. So we'll do a score, and we'll increase that every time we eat a mouse. So let's go and change the score by 1 if I'm touching the mouse. So if I'm touching the mouse, then increase the score by 1. And let's put the score, set the score to 0 when we start the game. But where is score? That's weird. Okay, there you go. There it is. Little glitch. So score, and we want to show the score. So let's go 0, 0, 0. And if I'm touching the mouse, and there we go, we have a bunch of points. Not exactly what we want. We want 1 point at a time, and we want more than 1 mouse. But for right now, the score worked properly. Set to 0, and the mouse goes to 1. So now let's do a couple things for the mouse. We'll do something called clones. So clones are copies, what we call instances. So let's hide the first one, and we can say something like, when I start as a clone, let's go to a random position. And then since the model, the first one is hidden, we will want to show the clone. So when I start as a clone, go to a random position and then show. Oops, I need to create some clone of the mouse. Every time I clear the clone, go to a random position and it shows. Perfect. So what we want to do is probably create that forever every so often when we click the green flag. And we'll use another variable not really a variable, but a reference to a random number. So any number between, let's say, 0.5 half a second and 5 seconds. So every time we'll wait a random number. And the thing is, I want my mouse to have different sizes and move at different speed. So what we can do is create a new variable, but instead of doing it for all the sprites, we will want to do it only for this sprite. And that will mean that each of the clones will have their own, let's call it speed, and it won't let me do it because I already have a variable called speed here. So what we can do is do the speed only for this sprite. So I will rename this variable with an X, so I can make the speed only for this sprite. Speed. There we go. So now I can just change the speed, change here to speed, and change here to speed, and I can delete the other speed that I don't need. So now the speed, you see, it's only for the player. So we only have one player, but it's only for this player. Here we want to make a speed, and since we'll have several copies of the same object, the same sprite, then they will each have their speed. And let's go with size. So we have, size, I want it to be for this sprite only too, size. There we go. So now every time I start as a clone, I will set my size and my speed to a random number too. So for the size, 50 is good. So let's go between 40 and 65, 60. So we have a range of size there. And for the speed, let's go with let's say 3 and 10. Okay, so we'll do a random size, random speed. So if we go here, we have wait a certain time. We have another one here, another one here, but they are not in different size because I don't use those variable yet. So what we'll do, we'll just use the variable by setting the size to the size, the variable size. So we'll set the actual size, which is also a variable you can size, and we'll set it with our own size that we picked at random here. And we will forever, we'll use the, not forever, but until we touch the player, we'll want to move by the speed and bounce if we hit the edge, and we'll also point away from the player. So to point away, let's just point toward the player and turn by 180 degree. So, and once we touch the player, we will simply delete the clone. Delete the clone, and just to be sure that, oh no, we give the time to the player to actually count the point. So we'll give it a small wait time of 0.0001 second, which tend to help for collision detection. So now we should have, we need to use the speed here, move not 10 steps, but the number of steps depending on the speed. So now we should have different sizes mouse that move at different speed. So we have one mouse here. Maybe we can create more often. So we have another mouse moving faster and smaller, a bigger, slower one. There we go, and we get to eat the mouse. Let's show the score. Score is 8, so maybe at 10, 13. So we give it a little too much time. So let's simply delete it without the pause. And let's speed up the spawning rate. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the pause was a bad idea in this case, but if you have detection on both sides, it tends to help. And there we go. We used variable to control different aspects of the game. It's a clean way to do it, and that make the code easily. You can easily change it to customize how it behaves. So thank you very much for following along. Don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel and watch the other videos, and join us live during the session on Thursday, 3 p.m. See you next time.